everyone, welcome back to All Things Jira, and I'm back with another weird story that I read about on the internet. So this story is about Charles Byrne. Well, first off, I want to say, make sure you like my channel, make sure you subscribe, and please share with your friends. Now my daughter is actually doing virtual school right now, so if you hear an excited little girl in the background, that's her. So today's story is about Charles Byrne. Charles Byrne was born in 1761 in County Derry in Ireland. Now this is in northeast Tyrone in Ireland. There isn't much known about Charles's parents other than the fact that he was born to an Irish father and a Scottish mother. Both of his parents were of average height, but Charles had gigantism, and this caused him to grow up to 8 feet 4 inches tall. Gigantism also causes a lot of health problems. Charles was known to be the tallest Irishman ever born. On April 11th, 1782, Charles was about 21 years old, and he decided to set out on his own. He wanted to make his own money. He started to exhibit himself. So he went to Spring Garden, he exhibited himself there, and he made a lot of money doing that. He called himself the Irish Giant. He traveled throughout Britain, and he also hooked up with another man who was extremely short. He was about 3 feet tall, and they did an act together, and they made a lot of money doing this. Charles made really good money doing this, and he became somewhat of a celebrity. He had several fancy apartments in London with custom-made furniture just to fit his tall frame. Charles was visited by nobles and royalty. He was really a celebrity. There was a set of twins with gigantism as well, and they started to exhibit themselves. And as twins, they kind of took over the fame from Charles. So Charles's fame was dwindling down a little bit, but he was still making a really good living. He had about 700 pounds saved, which was a lot of money at that time. But a mistake that Charles made was to put all of his money into one 700-pound banknote. And he lost that banknote one night at a pub. A few sources said that he was actually pickpocketed and that someone took that 700-pound note from him. After he lost his 700-pound note, Charles got really depressed. He started to drink more heavily. Several sources said that the drinking came from the health problems, and a few other sources said that the depression was intensifying his health problems. But he started to drink a lot. At this point, Charles, he felt like he wasn't going to live very much longer. He was starting to get really sick. A lot of scientists, medical schools, and surgeons started to contact Charles, requesting to use his body after his death for research. So they wanted the rights to his body. Now, Charles was really opposed to this. He did not want this to happen at all. So he went to his friends and he said, I don't want them to get my body after I die, so please bury me in a weighted casket in the middle of the ocean. Now, there was one particular surgeon that was really aggressive with Charles. He really was going after Charles to get the rights to his body. And his name was John Hunter. John Hunter was a noted surgeon at this time, and he had a very large collection of human artifacts, and he wanted to add Charles to that. And as I said, Charles asked his friends to make sure that his body was set out to sea where no one could get it. He did not want grave robbers or any of those surgeons or scientists or any of the medical schools to get his body and begin to research him or display him after his death. Charles contracted tuberculosis, and June 1st, 1783, at 22 years old, Charles passed away. Medical school representatives, scientists, and surgeons, they were all outside of his apartment like the paparazzi. And they were circling his apartment in an attempt to claim his body for research. But his friends did what Charles asked, and they set it up to have him put in a lead casket, and they were going to drop him out in the middle of the sea just like he asked. But come to find out, John Hunter, the surgeon that was after Charles's body, had bribed the undertaker. He paid him 500 pounds to switch out Charles's body with stones. So the casket with stones was given to his friends, and that casket was taken out to sea and buried at sea. And John Hunter had Charles's body, one of his boots, and one of his gloves. John Hunter boiled and defleshed Charles's skeleton, and he had that in his private collection for 2 years, and no one knew about it. Once he let it be known that he had the remains of Charles Byrne In 1799, the Royal College of Surgeons purchased these remains from John Hunter, and they also purchased his entire collection. So now they were in possession of Charles's remains, and they put that on display in the Hunterian Museum. And he's been on display there ever since. The Royal College of Surgeons says that they're keeping his remains on display and they're not going to allow him to be buried because they need his skeleton for research. They've already extracted a lot of DNA from his remains, and there are several people with gigantism that have offered their bodies for research in place of Charles, so Charles could be buried as he wished. But the museum says that the need for research on his remains outweighs Charles's request for peace after his death. In 2006, researchers in Britain and Germany actually found a link between Charles and 4 other families in the same part of Ireland that Charles was from. So these 4 families, they found out that they were all linked from one common ancestor from about 1500 years ago. Charles and the families that are linked, they all have a specific gene mutation that causes a tumor on their pituitary gland, and this causes the excess growth. It also causes a bulging forehead, large jaw, large hands, and large feet. One of those family members, his name is Brendan Holland. Now, in this particular article that I read, he was 58 at the time of the article. So they found that specific gene mutation in him, and they found the tumor on his pituitary gland. They were able to remove it and treat it, and he stopped growing at about 6'9". There's also something called the Free Charles Burns Project, and you can actually go online and sign a petition and send a letter to the Royal College requesting that Charles Burns's body be buried at sea in the way that he requested, and I'll put all the links in the description box below. Now, the condition that Charles had is called gigantism, and that causes you just to continue growing with no end in sight. There are 2 specific conditions: gigantism and acromegaly. Gigantism occurs during childhood, and acromegaly occurs during adulthood. Now, some people have one or the other, some have both. About 100 people in the U.S. have been diagnosed with gigantism. One person is John Rogan. At 8 feet 9 inches, he's actually the 2nd tallest man in the world, and he's the tallest man of African descent in the world. Now, there are quite a few celebrities with gigantism. Andre Rosimov, aka Andre the Giant from WWE, he was 7 foot 4 inches tall, and he had gigantism and acromegaly. He did a lot of movies that included giants and really tall people. He did one TV show in specific where he played Bigfoot, and that was the $6 Million Man. I actually talked about that show in an earlier video. There's Jorge Gonzalez of WWE. He grew to 8 feet tall. He had gigantism as well. And there's Paul Donald Wright, aka The Big Show, and he's 7 feet tall. Now, he had acromegaly. It's really sad that Charles could not even get peace in death. He did exhibit himself in life. He wasn't someone that was like slave to the freak shows and that type of thing. He wanted to go out and show himself and get paid for it. But the only thing he requested was to be at peace in his death. And here it is, all these hundreds of years later, and he still hasn't gotten that. So if you want to sign the petition, send a letter to, or send the email to the museum, please do that. I'll leave the links in the description below. But what do you think about the story? How do you feel? Do you think that his need for peace after death outweighs the need for research, or vice versa? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and please share my channel. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.